7 day deadline. And hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, and with me, my amazing husband and co host,
Stephen the Medium.
Stephen the Medium, is in the house. And today's conversation is one that touches all of us, Stephen, at some point in our life. The title for today's show is Love After Loss, Reimagining Relationships. And I have a feeling that you have a lot to say about love after loss because given what you do, many people come to you to be able to cope with their loss. But today's focus is going to be about love. What do we do after we have that loss, and how do we reinvent or reimagine a new relationship? What do you think about that, Stephen?
I think it is so appropriate because it's a great subject, but I also think it is so appropriate because this week, something that's never happened to me, I went from the worst, what I felt like, or probably one of the worst part of my life, like being in a place that was feeling like it's devastating, to, and I kid you not, to the best part of my life so far since I've been in existence in, I think, 3 to 4 days. I mean, I'm not going into details, but it was pretty astounding in that we have this subject to get to talk about. So yes, and of course, yeah, when I do readings all the time, the love and loss. I mean, that's the theme, right? You're not coming to me unless you're coming to connect with somebody who's lost, right? You've lost, so.
Yes, and I think what you just said, Stephen, about sharing or your own experience, of course, mine experience as well, tells our listeners that we're living. We don't do these shows just to talk about some random subject that we don't really live and embrace and are, we're part of it. This subject, and in particular this one, we walk the walk. So, and what I heard you in what you just said, Stephen, is that it is possible to reinvent, to reimagine a relationship. And
Absolutely,
so if you,
absolutely.
yeah, if you're listening and you know that you are coping with a loss of a love, and by the way, a love can be, we don't necessarily, of course, go immediately to intimate relationships, but it can be, and it can be any relationship that you had a love for. And I think that this conversation would be applicable to all of that and how to cope with all of that. But as awesome as this conversation is going to be, Stephen, I think you and I have lots of awesomeness to tell people about. So why don't you tell people what we've been up to?
Okay, so I know everybody's been waiting for this, right?
Okay,
So,
oh God.
so I went to my first yoga class last Friday morning, and just a yoga virgin, right? So I've never been, and I think I wanted to talk about it last week, and I don't think I did.
We
In
didn't
any
have enough
case,
time. You
yeah,
just told people how sore you were. That's it.
yes. So it was an incredible experience. It's like 11 minutes from the house, and it's on the second floor, and it was probably about 15 people there, I guess. Yeah, it was a good group. It was a really good group. And I had no idea what I was doing. But of course, I was with a room full of women. I'm the only guy. And which is just apropos, right? Because it seems like every time I even do large groups and readings and stuff, even though that is changing, I am getting a lot more guys, which I love. But it's generally, the majority is always women. So when I when I walked in, the first thing I do is tell them, this is my first time, and they're like, oh, what, like welcome, and I'm like, no, 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 first time ever doing yoga, and all of them just sort of looked at me. So then I walked into the room, and all the ladies were taking care of me like they were like my moms, and everyone's telling me, everyone's helping me roll out my mat. It was just incredible, right? And Chelsea is the instructor, and she was terrific. And a couple of times she came over to as we were doing these moves and stances. She was coming to me and just sort of correcting me because she uses the verbiage that's sort of in the yoga realm, and I'm like, the what? Like in my head, so I keep turning to the right or the left, whoever's next to me, to see what they're doing, and I'm just like copying and duplicating. So she said to me, "You did really, really well. You did really great." And of course, at the end, of course, I'm new. She does the namaste, which, I mean, Elix, you told me, I think they do that when they end yoga sessions. But me,
Yes.
and the 15 women, when Chelsea's done, I'm like, yay, Chelsea. And everyone laughed. And everyone sort of like clapped and stuff, right? It was a great experience. I was like, I'm coming next Friday. So I did this morning. It was a much smaller class. It didn't seem like it was different people. That's what it seemed to me. And there was probably about 8 people there, like including me. And, me, I walk in, I'm like, everyone, I was the last to walk in, everyone's on their mats, like either stretching. So
It's
kind of
mind blowing
you're here for yoga.
because
Look, you said,
like, why would you not bring positivity to the room?
yeah, I mean, the funny thing is when I came in, the actual owner was there. She wasn't there when I came in last Friday. So I walked in and and Chelsea was there again, of course. And Chelsea was like, he's back. And I started laughing. I said, some of the women last week told me I'll be sore the next couple of days. And I'm like, I'm a runner. I'm not going to be sore. And I said, and Chelsea, the next day, my husband said to me, why are you walking like that? And I just looked at him and said, because of Chelsea. And they laughed hysterically. I'm like, you are like a cute Satan. That's what you are. So, it was started off so good. And then I went in and there was a guy in front of me. And I even said, I'm like, oh, another guy. I kid you not. He just turned and looked at me and was like, yeah, another guy. It doesn't bother me. I don't care. I bring my energy. I don't care. And at the end, not caring anybody's in that room, I clapped and was like, yay, Chelsea. Again, I don't care. So Chelsea, I know Chelsea loves me and I love Chelsea. But I'll tell you, it kicks your butt, yoga.
It is. It's a workout.
Holy moly, Elix.
People don't. Well, for a long time, I kept saying, no, yoga is a workout. Yoga is a workout. And you were like, you didn't get it until now. Now you get it. Now yoga is a workout, and I believe yoga is good for the body, but it's also good for the soul.
Oh, I mean, I
That's why
agree,
I'm
but
coming back with you.
But I thought, honestly, I'm like, I mean, it's a workout. I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking of the Romper Room song when you walk in, bend and stretch, reach for the stars. And I'm thinking, no, it's just like these little things and motions. Last week, my core of my stomach in the back of my legs, and I mean, I'm thinking my legs are not going to be bothered because I run all the time. Oh no, they were killing me. Yeah, they were a good killing me. It was a really good strain, and clearly, as you mentioned, Elix, it was muscles I don't use running, and it was fabulous. Thus, the reason why I went back today. And next Friday, guess what? 8:00, I'll be there again.
And I think I may be there with you next Friday. So I'm gonna start thinking about how I can go from CrossFit, which is literally across the street from your yoga studio, into the yoga, so I can do yoga with you.
I love
So,
that.
but anyway, Stephen, the other thing that I wanted to, because of course after our show Friday, then we had our weekend, and but we had an amazing Saturday. You got to do a large, intimate group. Well, actually, an intimate. I don't even know. That doesn't make no sense. A large intimate. No, it's either large or it's intimate. No, it was a smaller group, but it's for the people who actually won the auction for the what is it? The Arts Foundation.
Arts
of Cape Cod?
Foundation of Cape Cod, yeah.
And that we went to Brewster. Stephen, that was an awesome experience. I just loved just the experience being there being with this group, listening to you. I mean, if I loved it, what was it like for you?
It was honestly, it was amazing because two people won the auction when I was part of the live auction for the Arts Foundation. And by the way, if anyone doesn't know this, I raised $15,000
That's
in just
one
one
five
bid.
people.
Yeah,
One
yeah,
five zero zero zero.
yes, I
$15,000.
did.
He was the biggest bid of that auction. Go
Yes.
ahead.
And
Move.
so this was one of the women that won, and the other one, I got to check in with her because we're going to be away when she wanted to do it. So I got to figure that out, and I'm excited to do that with her too in her group. But this group was, first of all, the grounds, where the person who won lives, was. I don't even know the word. It was just beautiful. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. We got to do it in the pool house or her pool house. And the people there were just so gracious and so genuine. Starting, of course, with
With
the
her.
hostess, right? The host.
Yes.
She was just amazing, and it was. I knew she was going to be amazing anyway, but then when we got there, it was, and it just the people that were there, clearly all her friends and all her close acquaintances. It was amazing and wild, and I know, I reached out to her. I texted her the next day and just thanked her, and she just said, everybody when we left could not stop talking about the readings, and of course everyone got read. So, and then we were so fortunate. Then we left there and went to P Town and had dinner at our most wonderful place, restaurant, Ciro and Sal's, with Vessel and Zach. And Zach's the owner and Vessel is the manager, and his wife Natalia, and everyone else that was there. And a big shout out to Hermaine, right?
Herm.
Herman.
Herman. I'm trying to think, like, who?
Herman.
Herman
Yes. Hey,
from
I got it the second time. Herman.
Herman
He
from
he was the
Argentina.
best.
Yes, he was amazing. But our boy Vessel, I mean, come on. He is one of a kind. Natalia, his wife, one of a kind. Zach,
Yes.
the owner of Zero and Sales, one of a kind. These people are just freaking amazing. So we're so blessed, Stephen. So
Yes.
blessed.
Yes.
But anyways, I just really enjoyed it, and I thought it was wonderful. And what you didn't say also, Stephen, is that before this woman won the auction, we saw her, and I actually thought she was one of my best friends that I lost connection with. And that was so serendipitous because we saw her in the parking lot where I'm trying to just call Julie, and she didn't answer. And then eventually, we got to meet her because she actually won the auction for
Oh,
to
right.
have
That's
you,
right. At the gala, we saw her in the parking lot, and she looked identical to your
Julie,
best friend
that
from years and years ago.
that
But
you got to meet. Yes, yes, yes,
I,
yes.
I mean, identical. So the fact that we ended up being there, which I think was just pretty. I don't know. It's just, again, like you just said, it's all spirit, right? That's what
It's
happens.
all spirit. But anyways, what spirit's telling me right now is that our GM, who is producing our show, is probably screaming commercial break right about now. So let's take a commercial break, and we will be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elex. I'm your host, Coach Elex, and with me, my amazing co host,
Attorney Masick is in the house.
Attorney Masick, who happens to be my husband and also an amazing medium. And today's conversation is, as I said earlier, is a conversation that touches all of us at some point in our life. And it's about love after loss, reimagining relationships. And whether it is the loss of a partner, the end of a relationship, or even a heartbreak that changed your world, loss always leaves an imprint. And yet has a way of showing up again, sometimes in surprising and unexpected ways. Today, Stephen and I are going to explore what it means to have the emotional courage to stay open, how to love without climbing to attachment or clinging to attachment, and how to honor the past while embracing the future. And here's a question, Stephen, that I've been, thinking about, and I would like to ask our listeners to reflect on as you listen to today's conversation. And by the way, if you are open to share whether you do so in the live stream or you want to call us at 508-222-1320. But the question is, if your heart could speak honestly right now, what would it say? If your heart could speak honestly right now, what would it say? Stephen, I can't help but just to we should start with that with ourselves. If our heart could speak right now, what would it say?
Are you going to go first?
No, you go first.
I was hoping you went. Well, when you said if my heart could speak honestly, I think we drop honestly, right? Because if anything's coming from your heart is
That's
authentic,
true.
right? It's
Yes.
genuine. It's the mainstay, and I guess maybe I'm going to answer this in a roundabout way, but one of the things I have realized over, especially because of becoming a medium and speaking to spirit and dead people and all of that, is that our hearts are protected like in a chamber, if you will, and this chamber actually will close. So clearly, when you hear someone may say, oh, this person's heart's closed off, that's what happens, right? The chamber closes and the heart's inside. The heart clearly doesn't go anywhere, but it is closed. And obviously when it's closed, it really is not giving you any information, or you're not connecting with the information, and therefore you're not going to be in a very good place. The key is, and the question that you asked about is, if your heart could speak, what would it say? Is, I think first and foremost, you have to figure out, is that chamber door open to even hear it? Because if somebody answers that question listening and the chamber of their heart, that the heart chamber is closed, you know what's going to happen? They're going to think something externally, and they're going to think that is what the heart is saying, and it's not. So it really depends on where you are is going to sort of dictate what answer you get. People say to me, someone just texted me this a couple of days ago, messaged me on Instagram, Stephen, how do you know when you're connecting to spirit, you're hearing your loved ones in spirit versus the little voice? And I responded and said, that is one of the most difficult, tricky things to figure out, right? Because you'll always have that sort of sense of, did I really hear that, or am I just I'm just in my head and that little voice is there? I'm not going to get into to the answer I gave her. I'm only just bringing that up is that I really believe that if that chamber door of your heart is closed, you're going to get, when you ask that question, you're going to get the answer that is sort of connected to my little voice as opposed to what the heart's actually saying. And to answer your question in a long-winded way, I would say my heart
I was going to say, I want to know what your heart is telling you.
right now, my heart, right now, presently, I think all my heart would do is not say anything. My heart would just smile.
Really? Wow.
That's it. right now, it's where I am right now, where I came from this week. I think if I was to look at my heart and say, what do you have to say? I think it would just, I know it would just look at me and just smile with this approval and gratefulness and gratitude, and just that smile would say it all. I wouldn't need any words.
So my heart, I love that, Stephen, because mine it's also smiling, and mine is really saying to me right now that life happens however life happens. Life happens however it is supposed to happen. And sometimes we think we can control what life gives us, but we can't, because life is giving us life for a reason. So my heart tells me to learn to surrender, to learn to trust the process, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when I'm not quite sure where the process, what the process looks like. So I think that is and for me, that is the biggest thing I I'm walking away with is, you know, somebody like me, Stephen, I've been conditioned to want to be prepared, right, for anything, because I'm suspect that if I'm not prepared, something bad happens, and I've learned that sometimes you just have to just let go and surrender to what is, and trust that whatever that is always going to have the best interest, your best interest at heart. And I said that to you before this week when we were talking about spirit, you know, because of course I've learned so much from you about spirit, and and we talked about certain things that, spirit has lead us to that. And then I said, and I know that spirit doesn't ever mean to hurt one, any of us. So whatever they do because they're always looking from a place of what can they do to help us step into that better version of ourselves. Does that make sense, Stephen?
Yeah, and it's beautiful. Your definition of what your heart would say, I think, is beautiful. Very, very, very connected. You can just tell it's from a very genuine place. And I think what you just said about spirit is that I say when I start my readings, I tell people that your loved ones in spirit today have taken a snapshot of you, of where you are in life, and really what they're doing is they're just shining a light on the aspects that they know you need to hear about, to listen about, and just know about. That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's just
These two are like Pollyannas. Like, how can their hearts, like, how can it all be so positive, right? And I love what you said at the beginning, because this is not an act that we're just saying to motivate people. This is
no.
really, I mean, I just explained. I went from the most devastating part of my life this week to the best part of my week. So we're vulnerable, we're open. It's just that we live in the present, and when you live in the present, even those major challenges are just handled in a better way.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, given what I do, and also Stephen, given what you do, I welcome being I welcome life, however, whatever that looks like. Sometimes good, sometimes challenging, sometimes even more challenging. But I welcome that because it allows me to walk the walk. And when I'm walking the walk, I can then be for my clients in a way that is far greater than if I'm just somebody who is talking the talk. You know what I'm saying, Stephen?
Yes, I love it.
And I imagine that the same goes for you, because when, even though you're when you meet with people, you're the mediator, the medium of course, pun intended, of what the spirit has to it's telling them. But if you weren't in the game, if you weren't living that, then even if you're relaying a message, you would come across as inauthentic, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that applies to everybody, and no matter what you do. I think that whatever you're giving somebody, the only way it's going to be authentic is if you feel it and believe it, whatever that is. Because if you don't, then there's going to be some breaks in whatever you're saying that are not going to make any sense.
I totally agree, Stephen. And another thing I think we need to agree on is that we do need to take another commercial break. And when we come back, we are actually going to step into this conversation, because I have other questions that I want to engage in. So let's take a break. We'll be right back. I was like frozen. I didn't know whether to say something,
I know, me
and,
too.
and
That's why I didn't. So, I'm like, oh my God, we're just going to be on air. Saying,
yes.
hello?
Don't worry about it.
No biggie. That's funny. Yes. Oh, sure. I'll do that right now. And welcome back to Get a
Get a
Grip with
grip
Coach
with
Elix.
Coach Elix. I'm
Oh, you are
here.
here.
Yes, I am here. Thank God I have self esteem on my side. So, welcome back, everyone. And today's conversation is Love After Loss, Reimagining Relationships. And one of the questions that I proposed earlier was if your heart could speak to you right now, what would it say? And so I'm curious about what would it say to any of you who are listening to us. But in the meantime, Stephen, I want to ask you, how do you know? How do we know when you're ready to open your heart again after loss?
Oh, oh boy. We have a whole party here.
Yeah, Jim, we can hear you.
I don't think he can hear us.
Yeah, he can hear. That's okay. Listen, people, that's what happens when you're live on the radio and when you got all kinds of bloopers happening. So just bear with us, dance with us. We just dance with the conversation.
I
Hopefully,
also I don't have Jim's cell, so I can't. It's not even like I can text him.
yeah. So I may just well, somebody's listening. Somebody from the radio station is listening,
I hope.
and and they can just tell Jim that we can hear. So, anyways, so Stephen, so the question that I propose is, how do you know when you're ready to open your heart again after loss?
Well, that's a potent question, right? Because obviously it's different for every single person. But I think, again, let me just say that I think the way to know, to absolutely feel as best as you can that it's time. And that's it. I don't. I'm sort of changing what I was about to say too, because there's always elements that you're checking in with your heart anyway, right? So it's not like it's time to open. I don't think. I think it's always open. It's just that that chamber door could be closed longer than it actually should be. That chamber door should always be open, right, where your heart resides. So I think you have to go again internally. All of this, and it's really not difficult. But for me to go, as I mentioned this week, from the worst time to the best time of my life, nothing externally changed for me to go from one side of the spectrum to the other side. Nothing. What changed in how I got there was going internally. And I always say, like, when you go internally, meaning that you're living in the present, it's really where hope resides. And when you do that, you sort of flip the switch. So I think that's what it really has to be all about. The second you start thinking of, as you just mentioned, Elix, is it time for me to just to really get my heart out there? If you're trying to get the answer externally, it's never going to be the right answer. You're either gonna just sort of take a couple of steps and just flop on your face, or it's going to be the opposite, and nothing feels like it's moving, because it's the answer being determined by external stuff is not the answer, right? So you got to go internally, and you really have to sort of take inventory, connect with your heart, just remind yourself who you are, why you're here, your meaning, and I think everything else falls into place.
And Stephen, from a spiritual perspective, again, because I live with you, I experience spirit, frequently, and we talk about it frequently. And people come to you because they want to, they're looking for healing of sorts. So, how can how can somebody who doesn't know or doesn't have access to going to a medium, or doesn't have the same, they're not exposed to the same conversation that you and I are day in, day out, but you tell them, really listen to your loved ones. Your loved ones are always in the background, guiding you, helping you. And I know that, so I'm always tuning in, paying attention. But
Right.
how can you help somebody that may not even know how to do that? Yet everyone has loved ones waiting, right, to
Right.
guide them. So
Exactly.
what's the
Yeah.
best way that that you could guide somebody towards listening to their loved ones?
I would say the number one thing to do is to talk to them. Whether it's I prefer vocally, verbally, like out loud. You can do it mentally, but I think that is the number one way to get yourself in the frequency to be able then to get signs from your loved one, because that's really what it's all about. It's, I always say too that just because I'm a medium, I don't get more signs than just like a regular person who's not a medium. We all get the same amount of signs from our loved ones in spirit. The difference is, for me as a medium, I do this every day, that I just am very, very good with seeing the signs and getting signs. And besides the fact I can see and hear and speak to dead people, however, it's all about the frequency. And if you get into a habit of, like, every morning or every afternoon or evening or all three times, and just start speaking to somebody, one of your loved ones in spirit, clearly knowing that maybe you're not going to hear anything back, because you may, but for the most part, if you don't, you're still putting yourself in the frequency. Really, what that's telling your loved ones is they really believe I'm still here, and they're in this arena now. We're in the same arena where they came up, I came down. We're in the same sort of plateau, and this is really the time for me to start throwing signs, because they're in the place that they can actually see signs and get signs. And that doesn't mean, like, you wake up tomorrow morning and you say, hi mom, and how are you, or and then all of a sudden, that day there's crazy signs. Again, it could happen, but you just have to trust and just sort of surrender and say, I'm talking to mom, dad, whomever it is, and I know that because when I'm doing that, I'm in this frequency that's gonna just allow me to see the signs. And I think second to that is rituals. Any ritual that you remember that was connected to somebody, even if it's something like it's Thanksgiving and you add a chair where your mom or dad or grandparent used to sit, or it doesn't even matter if it's where they sat, but you're representing them. Again, your brain is being pulled into the frequency of connecting with them, and that's how it really, I think, helps.
Yeah, and also, Stephen, one of the things I've learned recently is that just because, so for example, you one of your your powerful spirit guides is your grandma Rose, and what I notice is that she helps me too. She gives me signs too.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I there was a time where I thought I would only get signs from people I knew, from people that would be like my family or people that I have relationships with. But that doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily so, because here I am getting very powerful messages from what you would have said is your number one guide.
There's no question. And it is just like when the person, like you're talking about my grandmother Rose, right? I never even met her. But if she was living, there's no question that she would love you.
Yeah.
Even if we just change the roles here for a minute, my mom has
Yes.
passed away. My mom, like, adored you and loved you. So of course, if she was living and I called her and said, Elix, I don't know, Elix is sad about something, of course that would affect her, and she would say, what can I do for him? And so it's the same thing in spirit. So Grandma Rose will do the same thing, only she'll do it a little differently because it's energy based as opposed to physically based.
Yeah. So that's an important thing to remember. Now, Sandra, who is on our live feed, she actually asked Stephen, "Are there any levels? Are there levels of loss or different losses?" And then she says, will that change if you had a relationship with them? So that
Yeah.
I would say there are levels of loss, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting question because in the book that I wrote, my one and only book that I wrote that came out in 2023, I put in the beginning of the book. I mean, I don't remember verbatim, but I said something to the effect of to my grandma Rose, because I referenced all, of course, the dedication was to you, Elix, but I referenced my mom and my dad and my grandparents. And I had my grandma Rose separate. She had a little blurb separate from the other three. I love the other three. I never knew any of them, but the comment I made was, if anyone, something like, if anyone thinks it's impossible to know somebody like they're physically here, even though you never met them, please know it's possible. So yeah, I mean, so I think, I think it's all determined by, the person and internally, because I think there are levels. I mean, somebody, if I see a rabbit get run over, which happened years ago in Canada. Remember that, Elix? I think I cried. I don't even know how long, for how many miles. I just, so that level for me of loss, even though it's an animal, was so high versus someone else could just, oh, that's sad, and just keep driving, right? So yeah, I mean, it all depends I think, on the individual.
Yeah, no, I so get that, Stephen. Especially when it comes to the loss of the animals that we love so much. We do need to take a commercial break. Let's do that. Let's take a commercial break, and then when we come back, I have a question about, you know, can grief help you or help us heal and expand our capacity for love? So let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix, and with me, my amazing husband and co host,
Stephen Frederick.
Stephen the Medium. And today's conversation, a conversation that I believe touches all of us, if is about love after loss, reimagining relationships. And before the break, Stephen, I said, I want to ask you because you are an expert in the subject matter. In what ways can grief and healing expand our capacity for love?
Well, you know what? Personally, Elix, in my experience, I think that the biggest expansion happens when we're grieving. I really do. I
True.
think most of us don't think that. I think most of us, or a lot of us, or some of us may think that doesn't make any sense. How can I be expanding anything in me that's good when I'm grieving, right? Because that means I've lost somebody. But I do really believe that if there's one positive about grieving or grief, is that when you are grieving, grief comes to you, takes your hand, and I always, I say that it's sort of like we all have this attic of gifts. Like, just think of the top of your house, way to the top floor, and it's an attic of gifts that has been locked. And that when you're grieving, grief comes up to you, grabs your hand, and says, I need to show you something. And grief is the only essence that, for this particular attic and whatever's in it, has the only way to get in. So grief lets you in. And in this attic are all of these gifts that you didn't know you had. And simultaneously, as you're grieving, and you don't lose that, right? You still, because grief is right next to you. Grief, for God's sakes, is holding your hand. So of course you're still grieving, but you're also sort of like have a conflict in a good way, because you're also seeing these almost like presents all in your attic of gifts that you get to open, and new things just come out of it. New things come into your energy, and depending on the person, again, will also determine how fast they'll that walk will be to the addict of gifts, or how fast they'll open their gifts or figure it out. Because you've every one of us has probably heard somebody say, after this tragedy, and say someone lost their son, and then they create a foundation for maybe whatever the son died of, or something like that. That person, that mom that lost the son, in that some grief process, grief took her hand and said, come with me. And she went up to that attic of gifts, and she found that box, that present, and opened up, that said, you can do this. You can do this foundation. You can help others based on what happened to your son. That's how it happens.
Yeah. And we all have addicts,
Yes,
and
yes.
we all have hidden gifts in the attic. Now, what about this, Stephen? What are some of those? Because we also have a lot of self-limiting beliefs. What do you think are some of those self-limiting beliefs about relationships that we should be letting go of so that we can move forward powerfully, and so we can, and that creates that opening to reimagine relationships and love again?
Yeah, man, I think all of us do, right? Elix, every single one of us has limiting beliefs. I think we've
Yep.
talked about this on other shows, that it is the way we're conditioned. It's the way that we grow up, and we pick up beliefs that are not true. They're just, there's somebody else's beliefs that sort of were thrown on us, and like spaghetti to a wall, they just stuck. And
Yeah.
and once they stick to you, then we feed them. And as we grow older, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's all that limiting stuff, that whatever is going on. And really, the way to get rid of the limiting beliefs, or even knowing about them, is, as I've talked about before, is really taking inventory of yourself. And when you're in moments, I think one of the greatest things is when you're in a moment of being upset about something, something has got you going. Those are the magic moments to really dissect, why did I react that way? What is the foundation of what is that causing this reaction, that I am either really upset, angry, whatever the case may be? That is always a golden moment to figure out what's the foundation, and I guarantee you that's one of those limiting beliefs. And
I,
and once you know about it, you throw it out.
I agree, and I think it's about like really paying attention to, because Stephen, I think of things like how often do you hear people say love only happens once, and guess what? If that's a belief that you hold, it's only going to happen once.
Exactly.
Or loss means love is gone forever. If you hold to that belief, that's exactly what's going to happen. Or, another one that I hear often, geez, with my clients is no one will ever understand me again. Okay, well, if you hold on to that, that's exactly how life is going to show up.
No question. I mean, that's the, when I talked a couple of minutes ago saying this is really, it's not difficult. It really isn't rocket science to figure this out. It's just the limiting beliefs that are sort of like these barriers for us to figure this out. But when you do, everything falls into place. And the greatest thing, Elix, and you and I just had this conversation, when it clicks immediately. Like when you get it within a day, and I'm not kidding, it's not like a couple of months, it's in a day, you will start seeing things differently. The masks will come off, the filters will come off, and it just keeps getting better and better and better, because you're getting more and more closer and becoming best friends with your soul and your heart. And that really is where the magic again resides.
Yeah, and Stephen, as I'm listening to you and given our own life experiences, I can't help to think that, we often seek the answer somewhere out there, right? Like somebody else has the answer. And I think in what I just heard you say is actually we all hold the key to the answer.
Absolutely. And I think so many people, Spirit tells me this all the time, that when I'm talking to dead people, that they went through their entire life, born and died, and always looked for the answers externally and never found the joy, like their meaning, why they were placed here in the first place. So and that's part of what I just said, Elix, and I'm glad you brought it up. When you figure that out, everything changes immediately.
Yeah, I love that. Listen, if you're listening, I hope this conversation has been as insightful and impactful to you as it has been for Stephen and I. This is not just a random conversation, it's really a conversation about life, about our own experiences, and wanting to bring you in that journey with us. And I'm going to close with this, Stephen. Today's conversation is a reminder that love after loss is really not about replacing what was lost. It's about expanding who we are because of it. And grief and endings, yeah, they can change us, but they can also open us to new ways of loving, new ways of more honesty, be more compassionate with ourselves, and even learn how to be courageous in ways that we've never been able to before. And I'm speaking for myself. So I would also say, if your heart could speak honestly, it may remind you that you are stronger than you realize. We all are. And that love does not end, it actually transforms. It's an ongoing transformation. And I think we all have the ability to honor our past while opening up to a future. Perhaps even a future that we have not yet imagined. So I'm inviting all of you as you move forward. I invite you to listen to your heart, let it guide you towards healing, let it guide you towards openness, and toward the possibility of reimagining what love could look like in your life. Because even after loss, love has a way of finding us again, for sure, perhaps even better, in a even better before. So I think that's how I want to leave it for today, Stephen. Anything else that you want to add so that before we complete our show?
I don't think I can top that. That was perfectly said. And if you're looking to find me, just go to Stephen the Medium on my website and social media, and you will find me.
And you can find me at Coach Elix. And I want to thank all of you for listening, for just giving your time and your attention to Stephen and I so generously every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Share this with your friends and your family. You know, help us continue to grow our audience. If you missed an episode, you can always go to Coach Elix, Spotify, and there's over 100 episodes that you can listen to. And I want to thank you, Stephen, the medium, my husband, my everything, for always bringing wisdom and heart to the conversation. So thank you again. Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we will be back next week.
Bye
Have a
bye.
wonderful, bye-bye, everyone.